What's going on, everyone? I'm Travis Brown here in the Eagle newsroom, but we got a joint effort today to break down the Texas Bowl. I'm joined here by Dean Ruhl of the Tulsa World. Of course, the Tulsa World is a Lee Enterprise paper, so we're sister papers here at the Eagle. So we're doing a combined My Aggie Nation podcast and OSU Sports Extra podcast today to break down that Texas Bowl. Dean, how's it going? You ready for a bowl season, or at least this bowl game?
Of course. I mean, I think this is going to be an interesting one. As bowl games are kind of getting a little weird these days, Travis. They're kind of throwing it back and forth on how much they exactly matter. But I think this is going to be an interesting one. An identical matchup to what we saw back in 2019, but still, I think one that's got quite a few storylines that are going to be interesting to follow.
Yeah, let's start out with the Oklahoma State side of things. And what are some of the biggest storylines heading into the Texas Bowl?
Well, Travis, this has been such an interesting season for OSU because not too long ago, if we go back to September, this team was 2-2, and they lost to South Alabama. They lost to Iowa State. It didn't, you could almost make an argument that this OSU team wasn't going to make a bowl game. But I think, as most people who follow college football know, Ollie Gordon emerged at running back. He goes on to win the Doak Walker. He puts up some numbers that haven't been seen in Stillwater since Barry Sanders was here. That's for sure a storyline. Just what Ollie Gordon's done this year, how they're going to continue to use him in this final game of the season, and just kind of the emergence of this offense that looked so stagnant last year and looked like it just had zero life, how it's kind of blossomed in conference play. It leads to them making a Big 12 title game against a Texas team that they really did not match up that well against. But, and it results in Mike Gundy's 18th straight bowl game. And that's kind of what you're going to get with this OSU team.
Yeah, from an A&M perspective, it's been a tumultuous 2 seasons really for them. The 5-win season last year that really kind of put Jimbo Fisher on the hot seat, even though we didn't quite suspect that it was going to shake out the way that it did. And then narrow losses this year to some teams, but it ended up just being a 7-win season. Jimbo Fisher was fired after a win against Mississippi State here in Kyle Field. And they had an interim head coach situation with Elijah Robinson taking over the helm. They beat Abilene Christian the next week, but then lost to LSU to close out the season. It's been 2 years since A&M has been in a bowl game. 2 years ago, they were supposed to play in the Gator Bowl against Wake Forest, but backed out due to COVID-19 outbreak that kind of spread through the team. And then last year, of course, the 5 wins, they didn't make a bowl game for the first time in a very long time. So it's a fan base that hasn't been a part of bowl season for a couple of years, and that's weird around these parts. The Texas A&M has also gone through 3 quarterbacks for the second time in 2 seasons. They started with Connor Wegman, who was their quarterback of the future, and he was injured, broke his foot, and was out for the remainder of the season. During the Auburn game early in conference play, enter Max Johnson as the backup quarterback for the second year in a row, and he made it all the way to right before the Mississippi State game, and he got injured. Transferred Jalen Henderson from Fresno State, who hadn't even attempted a pass in 2 years and was a backup at Fresno State. And he's actually done a really good job in the last 3 games of the season, running a little bit more of an RPO type game and doing some stuff with his legs. So it's been a wild and crazy season for the Aggies, but one that has been really nailed down in the wins that they have had by a really strong defensive front.
And yeah, Travis, you talk about it's been a crazy season, and I assume it's probably going to be a bit of a hectic offseason with what's going on in the portal right now for A&M. And, OSU went through their own crazy, hectic, out of control portal exodus last year. I think that's something that a lot of OSU people are interested in knowing about. Kind of what does this Texas A&M roster look like a week out now from the bowl game.
Yeah, right now they have, I believe it's 14 players in the portal. The key ones, the guys that are really turned some heads are guys like Walter Nolan, who was the highest rated recruit that A&M ever pulled in, a part of that 2022 recruiting class that was the graded best recruiting class and kind of in the history of the modern recruiting era. And Fidel Diggs is a defensive end that was a really strong catalyst to that A&M defensive front and what they were able to do this year. He's going to follow Elijah Robinson, the interim head coach, to Syracuse. Elijah Robinson, of course, is going to be the defensive coordinator there after this bowl game wraps up. So those are basically the main guys. Yeah, tight end Jake Johnson is Max Johnson's brother. He saw some pretty significant time this year, but they have a pretty loaded tight end room. So you'll see some guys there. And then Evan Stewart, the wide receiver, that was another big get in that 2022 class. He's in the portal as well. The mostly, you could argue the good thing is that in the places that they lost players, also Deuce Harmon and Tyreek Chappelle, both cornerbacks. That actually is going to be an interesting situation. Probably the biggest vacancy of any of the places. You have guys like Sam McCall who can step in a transfer, but it's going to be really interesting to see who they throw out there at cornerback. Maybe Josh DeBerry could be a guy that could fill in there. But when you look at the defensive line, defensive end, they're pretty solid there. They have pretty good depth. When you look at wide receiver, they have pretty good depth. Evan Stewart missed a significant part of the season here with injuries here and there, and you had guys like Moose Muhammad, Noah Thomas, Ja'Day Walker, who stepped up and did a pretty good job in his absence. Probably the biggest absence isn't even have to do with the portal or the NFL draft. It's going to be Anais Smith, who would have played in the game, he said, but he broke his finger during the LSU game and needed surgery. So he's going to sit out this game. He is actually declared for the NFL draft along with McKinley Jackson, Layden Robinson, Edrin Cooper. But he said he would have played if it wasn't for the finger injury. So yeah, it's going to be a depleted team, but I think it's most of the places where guys have moved out. It's places where they have a little bit of depth there. Of course, not the same types of players that are in the portal or going to the NFL draft. But there's no chance of A&M skipping out on the game like they did 2 years ago. Elijah Robinson said if they have 11 guys that they can suit up, they'll send 11 guys out there, kind of in that 12th man fashion, a little bit of an old fashioned type traditional approach there. What about Oklahoma State? I know portal and draft it hurts every team. What's the outlook for the Cowboys in this game in those regards?
So up to this point, I think it's safe to say they've went relatively unscathed. They've lost some depth pieces to the transfer portal. I think the most notable being their backup running back, Jaden Nixon. He goes in. That's going to leave Ollie Gordon and a true freshman running back. And then there's a redshirt senior, Elijah Collins, who could make some appearances. But I'd say outside of that, there's still some time, obviously. Players can still hop in there, and then there could always be a rush after the bowl game. But for the most part, they've kind of held their ground. This is polar opposite to what OSU went through last year. And I think you said A&M has 14 players in. That was about where OSU was last year, ahead of their bowl game, and they lost a ton of starters, right? That was when they lost Spencer Sanders. They lost some running backs. They lost some wide receivers. But at this current moment, they've done all right there, and they've already started to pull some commitments in. Obviously, that's not going to affect the bowl game, but they really seem to have figured this out a bit better compared to where things were at last year. I think this bowl game's a little bit of an opportunity. They're not going to call it an exhibition game or a preseason game, but I think this is going to be a little bit of an opportunity to see what the depth is able to do. And Travis, based on what you're saying about A&M, I assume that might be kind of similar. out of necessity, they're going to have to play some depth pieces. But uh, for the most part, I think this is kind of figuring out. It's now. Tell me what you think of this, Travis. But it almost feels like bowl games have become not a way to celebrate the end of the season, but to the first step in preparing for the following season or the upcoming season.
Yeah, that's the we heard from Mike Gundy on a virtual press conference, a couple days after the bowl game was announced, and that's pretty much the way that he phrased it. That these bowl games are more like a spring game before the spring game, because you get some guys, and I actually do think that one way to gauge this game and who might be the favorite is who has the team that has the most players that have something to prove. Who has the team that has the most players that want to try to solidify their spot, a spot up in the depth chart once spring ball rolls around, and give an opportunity. You could say that the transfer portal hurts A&M because they do lose some of their starters, and I think that is going to be a big storyline in this. But they do have some guys who have seen decent snaps through the season who are going to want to come in and try to prove their worth for the next season. So that's kind of the new version of, is the team going to be up for the bowl game? I kind of feel like. The other factor, too, that I actually didn't even mention earlier, I forgot about, is the fact that, A&M's gone through this coaching change. They hired Mike Elko. Mike Elko is in the process of bringing in his new staff that'll be here for the next season, including offensive coordinator Colin Klein from Kansas State. But their offensive coordinator, of course, Jimbo Fisher had a huge say in the offense. He hired Bobby Petrino this year to run the offense and call plays. Bobby Petrino, right after Jimbo Fisher, or right after the LSU game, went ahead and took the offensive coordinator job back at Arkansas. So he's left. He's not in the building anymore. And they also lost wide receivers coach Damian Craig, offensive line coach Steve Adazio. So it's actually going to be James Coley, the tight ends coach, who's going to move over and call plays, be the offensive coordinator for the bowl games. Now, he has experience with that, doing that with Georgia several years ago before coming to A&M. But it's going to be interesting to see what this offense is going to look like, how the plays are going to be called. A&M's a little bit of a wild card, and I know that's something that Mike Gundy talked about a little bit before, about how do you game plan for a team that you don't really know who the players are, but not even that, who's going to be coaching and who's going to be calling the plays. Has he talked a little bit more about what he's seen from A&M and how they're kind of addressing that situation?
And even talking to him yesterday during early National Signing Day, asking him, do you have a better grasp of what A&M is going to be? It's just, you obviously know it, Travis. It's such a fluid situation right now. It really is hard to kind of game plan for that. And there are some. A&M is the top defense in the SEC. That's not going to change. They've lost some portal guys there, obviously, Walter Nolan, being the headliner. But, I think at this point in the season, OSU is kind of comfortable to say, we're not going to spend too much time on what's going on the other side of the field, because we know what we're good at, what we can accomplish. And we're just going to prioritize that, especially in a game like this where the focus is going to be on, hey, what do we got in some of these guys who didn't play a ton this year? Let's see what we can do when we throw them out there. Let's see what they can do. There's obviously still a ton of talent on that A&M roster that's going to be a good challenge, a good opportunity for younger guys to kind of cut their teeth on something substantial that's not, just a spring game. Here's your opportunity. Let's see what you do with it. And so I think that's kind of the approach that they're going with an A&M roster that's in such a fluid state right now.
Yeah, let's go back and talk something a little bit more about Ollie Gordon. You mentioned him early, kind of in your things to watch in the season. I mean, he's been absolutely electric, rushing for over 1,600 yards, 20 touchdowns. Like you said, wins the Doak Walker Award. Talk a little bit about that progression of him through this season, and it's not going to be a whole lot different than what A&M was expecting coming into that 2019 game when they had Chuba Hubbard and everything he had, but Ollie Gordon just seems to be that next step above.
Exactly. Like you said, OSU's had their dynamic running backs in the past. And, Chuba Hubbard's starting in the NFL right now. But Ollie Gordon is just a little different, right? He's got that, he's able to get downfield. I think his best trait is just his vision. And that's something that OSU really prioritized after that 2-2. They go 2-2 and then they hit the bye week. And one of the things was just kind of simplifying some stuff on the offensive line, in the run game. And a lot of it was not making Ollie Gordon go side to side, but just saying, get him downfield because then his vision opens up. And that's how you see him break these big runs and show kind of that power and that finesse. And it's all in this, just package that has led to, like you said, 1,600 rushing yards, a Doak Walker Award, 20 touchdowns. And he did that really. I mean, if you really want to think about it, Travis, he did that in 9 games this year. When they lost to South Alabama, he carried the ball 3 times for 12 yards. So you've got every trait you'd want in a running back he's showing. And the big thing I think right now for OSU fans is they're waiting for him to say what his decision is, right? Is he going to come back? What's he going to do? That's kind of, everybody's holding their breath. And I don't think you're going to get that announcement until after the bowl game. But he's the complete package at running back. And I think it took them a little bit to kind of realize what they had, because even after their bowl game last year against Wisconsin in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Ollie Gordon was the starter because they lost some running backs in the transfer portal. That was when he was a freshman. And even then, I don't think OSU really saw it just yet. And through the first 3 games of the season, it took a little bit of time, and then he just took off and has become kind of a national headline for this program.
Sure. So how well do you think? I know it was a pretty good split crowd in 2019. What's the vibe with the fan base about if they'll travel to this game or not?
I think it is. You obviously A&M is right there, so they're going to have a huge contingent. I believe the largest contingent of OSU alumni in the country is in Houston. I believe that is the stat. So I would expect them, not only, I think you're going to get some opportunity from just people being in that city that went to OSU, but on top of that, I think you're also going to get some people that want to travel down, because it's been such a, at 9-4, it's hard to call it a special season, but I think it's been a season that a lot of people have rallied behind after such a rough year last year. And if you look at when they were down in Houston to play Houston last month, that was a split crowd, Travis. I'll give them that. They traveled well for that. I think they get a little boost from having such a big alumni base in Houston. I'd expect a pretty good crowd from them.
For sure. Do we want to close it out with kind of some keys to the game? Well, what keys would you say Oklahoma State needs to achieve to be successful in this matchup?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is going to be what it's been all year for this OSU defense, and that is they can't allow the big plays. And it's been an up and down kind of roller coaster. That this is their first year with a new defensive coordinator, Brian Nardo, who comes from the Division II ranks, kind of an out-of-the-box hire that I think most would agree has been successful, but there's areas that need to be improved. One of which they've really gotten killed in big plays, big passes, big runs against an A&M team that, as we've said all podcast, has still got some talent. Regardless of how many people hop in the portal, they are still talented. And so that's going to be, I think, the first key is if OSU wants to win this game, the defense is going to need to tighten up. They can't let Quinn Ewers threw for, I think, 464 passing yards in their last game, the Big 12 championship game. They can't let that happen if they want to win this game. I think the second key is uh, in OSU's own passing game. Alan Bowman has, in this might be his final collegiate game ever, depending on what happens with a NCAA hardship waiver. This could be his final game, and he's shown a knack to be consistent, but also distribute the ball. So if OSU is going to try to throw in some younger receivers who didn't get to play a ton this year, how well can he kind of distribute that around and keep the offense balanced? That's been the key all year for OSU. They want to keep that offense balanced. If the pass game goes well, it opens up the run game. If the run game starts well, it opens up the pass game. That's how they like to play off of it, because it's when they get one-dimensional, that's how you see results like 40 when they lose 45-3 against UCF. So that's going to be, I think, the second key. And then the third key is what can Ollie Gordon do? He's a playmaker. He is, the lifeblood of this offense. I don't know how many touches they're going to be willing to give him in a bowl game, but whatever he can do with it, in whether it's 5 touches or 15, that could be the difference in the final score. But on the A&M side, Travis, what are you kind of seeing there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the run defense looks like, and really the pass rush looks like for A&M. I mean, that's been the staple, the bread and butter, the everything for this A&M this year. But you're missing Walter Nolan, you're missing Fadil Diggs, you're missing LT Overton, you're missing probably the most important, Edrin Cooper, who probably should have been a consensus first-team All-American this year. A unanimous first-team All-American this year. But he had a couple of second-team nods. He was for the majority of the season, the highest-rated linebacker on Pro Football Focus. And was just A&M's everything in that pass rush and that run defense. He's declared for the NFL draft, isn't going to play in this game. They do have depth there. They do have a lot of guys that can plug and play, and they rotated a lot on that defensive front. But I'm just going to be curious to see how well they can manage what has been a really, really good Oklahoma State running attack all season, and if those guys are up to the task to not only be as productive as the whole group was the whole season, but maybe play some more additional snaps than there may have been used to this season. So that's going to be a factor in this game as well. Also, what's the offense going to look like? I mean, they can't completely revamp a playbook in 15 bowl practices like they have, but it's a completely different play caller, a completely different guy than Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher and James Coley calling the offense. What's that going to look like? And then the question that's been the question the entire season for A&M is which offensive line is going to show up? The offensive line has been at times historically bad this year. When you want to look at a number of quarterback hits allowed, they led the country last year in the amount of hits they allowed on the quarterback, and this season they were in that running at the top of the list through the majority of the season, but dropped to second or third there as the season wound to a close. They allow pressure on the quarterback. The X factor there has been Jalen Henderson, who has that escapability, has been able to get out of the pocket and make some plays at times, but he's still under pressure most of his dropbacks. Is that offensive line going to find a little more cohesion in these 15 practices? They're going to be without Layden Robinson, who has been a stalwart in that starting offensive line because he declared for the NFL draft. They were looking like they were going to be without Chase Besantis, who has been the starting left tackle through most of the season, but he actually took his name back out of the portal. Well, interesting to see how he factors in with how many practices he's had, or if they're going to mix and match stuff in that. Like you said, this is the spring game before the spring game. I don't know how much of this is going to be, let's go out with all of our starters and try to go get this thing, or if it's going to be, let's mix some guys in, get some guys some reps, and see where the dice falls. But those are going to be some of the most interesting things I'm going to be looking out for, because it's going to be a wild one. They are way short-staffed. I mean, at least as of the last time we talked, and I don't know if this is going to be an official thing where he actually has the headset. I asked, and they weren't sure yet. But Anais Smith has been coaching the wide receivers because Damian Craig took a job, has left the team, and I believe is heading over to Auburn. And so Anais Smith, the senior wide receiver, he's been the guy who's been coaching up the wide receivers a lot during practice, everybody has said, and calling him Coach Anais. For what these bowl games are worth now, I wonder if they are going to slap a headset on him and he's going to be the wide receivers coach for the game. Who knows? It's going to be craziness, but it also should be a lot of fun because these teams kind of match up strength on strength both ways, and that should be a lot of fun to watch.
That's a great line on his resume there for Ainias Smith, coach before he even makes the NFL.
Yeah, he is a vocal guy, and people probably already thought he was coaching a lot before he actually kind of gets this official, unofficial role with the team this season. It does seem, even in the last 2 regular season games that A&M played without Jimbo Fisher, it does seem like the moral of the story has kind of been, hey, everybody, let's go out there and have fun. You know, they've run some trick plays during the LSU game. They put in Mark Naboo, one of the offensive linemen, at running back on a goal line play and let him rumble into the end zone for a touchdown. It would be interesting to see if A&M does pull some tricks out of the bag, just because there's this they're walking this fine line of, yeah, of course, they're Texas A&M. They want to go out and win every game they can, but also they're doing some stuff to let the kids have some fun, especially after how hard the season's been. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see if they pull any rabbits out of the hat and do some fun stuff that kind of, that's the way bowl games should be now, right? It should be kind of glorified all-star games and do some fun stuff, do some gimmicks, try to make the SportsCenter top 10 because that's kind of what's to play for, right? Yeah. So
I agree.
Yeah. Well, hey, Dean, for the Eagle readers and viewers, where can they find your work and find you on social media? Yeah.
So on Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it these days, that is at _Ruhl, RUHL _book. And all our OSU coverage can be found at OSUSportsExtra.com or TulsaWorld.com, and follow the kind of the sidebar over to all our content. So we're going to have all kinds of coverage in the next week, coverage of the game. So if you want to learn a little bit about this OSU team before next Wednesday, give us a read over there. And Travis, for any OSU people wanting to read a little bit about the Aggies, where should they go?
Sure thing. All the stories, articles, videos, all the above is on theeagle.com down here for the Bryan College Station Eagle. And you can find me on Twitter, X, again, whatever we're calling it, at Travis_L_Brown, or follow the Eagles sports coverage at the Eagle Aggies on X and Twitter as well. Dean, thanks so much for giving us some time, and I'm glad we got to do this little joint podcast with 2 sister papers in the Lee Enterprises network. So for everyone who's listening to the OSU Sports Extra, thank you, as well as the My Aggie Nation podcast. We'll both talk to you again soon on our respective channels.